Hey everybody, welcome to Swedenborgian Life Live. Today we're going to be looking at divine providence and how everything is run. My name is Curtis Childs and I'll be your host. With me, again, as always, Dr. Jonathan Rose.
Hey Curtis.
Great hanging out with you. And if you guys wouldn't mind, please like and subscribe, which is critical to us getting where we need to go. Click the bell if you subscribe. These are the things that matter. Hit the like button. We need to go above 182. So we're continuing our series here. We're continuing our series on the nature of everything.
Yes, right.
Which is a Swedenborgian luxury that you can go through and talk about every single thing that ever was. And before we get into why life is the way it is, why bad things happen, everything in between, let's warm up because it's hard to go from where we are now to such lofty topics. Let's start thinking spiritually, and you in the chat room, we want to hear the same thing from you and you at home afterwards in the comments. So let's get ready to answer a question. And I know that some people wish we would, in these questions, be a little more gritty, a little more raw, but you got to understand that we've got to ask things that are relatively benign and aren't too invasive into your personal life. So today, the question we're going to ask is just a nice watered down. What is an evil love that you have chosen to reject in your life? And why would we be asking this question in an episode about divine providence? That's a hint as to what it is.
How does that fit in?
What's up with this evil love? Well, in Swedenborgian terms, a love is a desire for something. You can want something that's not good, and in that case, it's an evil love. So
yeah, that's right.
Just offhand, what is, and all of you in the chat room, get your answers in there because we'd love to hear what spiritual battles are you fighting? How are you trying to use principles to improve your life? At the end, be careful because if you put it up there, we'll put your name up at the end and we'll hear from everybody. So hit me with something.
Well, the word reject is really interesting in there to me because there's kind of two categories in my mind. One would be just things where, Swedenborg says that we're all born generally preferring ourselves over God, like loving ourselves more than we love God, loving money and wealth and worldly things more than we love our neighbor. Yeah. And but that's just more of a priority. It's not like you reject yourself.
Yes.
You just try to get that in the right spot. So there's certain things that I think are relatively innocuous, but then there's other stuff that really has, over the years, to me, felt like sometimes there's just some evil presence that is suggesting something so heinous, so clearly wrong. You know what I mean? That's definitely like a reject situation. Those are things of violence, sexual insanity, things that have to do with like worshiping yourself as a god or wanting to just dominate over people to have your pleasure at others' expense or whatever it is. And those kind of things, sometimes you're in a bad state and they have some access to you. And so I like try to shove that stuff out to the trash.
Almost like out of character. Like I would never think that, but this is in my head somewhere.
I wonder sometimes, honestly, whether they are sort of like gambling and they think, well, this is sort of a long shot. But some people like to, it's 150 to 1 on this horse, but hey, if you win big, so,
Yeah, what's the over-under on getting Jonathan to poke Curtis in the eyes now?
Yeah, that's right.
And I want to say that word reject is interesting as well because, there's stuff that I felt like, I want to get rid of that, but I'm making no progress. That would be things like, oh man, I had like when getting really upset or rageful when like meaningless accidents happen. I had an episode about News from Heaven recently. I'm trying to apply these principles, but I can still, or if the dog and cat continually is disobeying my will, it's very hard not to get triggered by that. But something that I feel like I did have some success with, and this was not something I was particularly prone to, so it wasn't that big a struggle, but I do remember consciously doing it for these principles was gossip. Not talking about people behind their back and just for the fun of being degrading. Like there was definitely, it's not that I won't, if I feel like somebody's doing something harmful or is causing problems, it's not that I won't speak negatively about that person or other people that I feel like I can do something, but just, hey, let's think about their misfortunes or their failings or something. I did, from Swedenborg, learn that that's the killing commandment. You're killing somebody's reputation, I can't do it. So it wasn't something, like I said, that I was really prone to, so it wasn't a hard battle, but it was a little teeny battle that I did, man. I think. I mean, it's not like I'm perfect at it, but I do it less than I would.
Yeah, and I think it is the really clearly evil ones that are easier to reject. The other ones are kind of confusing because I don't know, is this good, is this bad? You know, trying to sort it out. And everything.
With all that said, we'd love to see what kind of feedback we get on this one, so put it out there. We'll see what we get on the other side. Okay, we did that. Now it's time to move on to talking about divine providence. As we said, we are covering everything in life. And we were trying to think, how do you do that? And we thought, well, Swedenborg had a system for covering everything in life. He published a series of books, and we want to take you through that book series. Wait, some people don't want to have like a book club.
Right.
But this, knowing the packaging that these ideas came in, and knowing the order and purpose of all that, really helped me understand it better. And also, we're going to get deeply into the ideas in the book. So it's just a way to categorize information as well. All that said, enough hedging. What are we talking about today?
Yeah, I mean, there's sort of a tendency to, amongst people, when you get to a certain level with Swedenborg, then you're kind of eating everything in sight.
Yeah.
And then you're not really noticing, did this come from this book or that book or whatever. And it's interesting to go to the next level and start to see, oh, this is where you find this cool stuff. And that's where you find this cool stuff. So what we're doing is we're doing Divine Providence. And this is a very cool,
deluxe.
Very cool book. Let's see if I can get that to show up properly.
Go to Swedenborg.com. You can download this for free in PDF form.
I don't know if you can see there are like hands holding the world.
That's right.
It's a cool image in that deluxe paperback. And the long title of the work is Angelic Wisdom About Divine Providence. Angelic Wisdom about Divine Providence.
Drawn right out of the angels' minds. So what's the headline? If we were to describe this book to somebody, what's it about?
I sort of think like what God takes care of and what you need to take care of.
What? Yeah, no, that's right.
Think?
There is this fascinating distinction in there that it's one of the headlines is how everything is run. This is what's going on, and within there, subheading why evil is allowed to exist, why war is allowed to happen. But really, that's not the entirety of the book. There's this whole deep current in there of here's how you got to act, and that's why we had that crazy question to start about shunning evils.
Yeah, why would we have a question about that? And looking at Divine Providence.
That's exactly what you're going to run into. If you get into Divine Providence, he's talking all about that, right? So let's take a look. If we were to open this up, we'll find this illustrated in our What's in It section. In the table of contents, you can see exactly what we're talking about. So here's your nice PDF if you've downloaded it. So you do have things where, like, let's take a look at the first section, 11. Divine Providence focuses on eternal matters and focuses on temporal matters only as they coincide with eternal ones. That's about the governance of God for the whole universe.
And a very cool point.
Yeah, but then you get, and you see in 14, evils are permitted for a purpose, salvation, so why is there evil? But,
that's right.
But then, like, take a look at 16. Divine Providence does not charge us with anything good or credit us with anything evil or credit us with anything good. Rather, our own prudence claims both. So that's more about our reaction and how we should or shouldn't react to things. So you get kind of a combination in here.
That's right, and there are 18 chapters in the work, and so here you see sort of the last third of the work almost there, or something like that, because they're somewhat larger chapters than in some of his other books. And you do get that swing from sort of the really deep, and I think some people don't understand from the title what it's about. Like Heaven and Hell, you sort of know what that book's about. And Divine Love and Wisdom, you have a good idea what it's about. But Divine Providence, you wouldn't think, oh, that's probably a self-help book. That's probably going to tell me how to be a better person. You know, you just wouldn't think that. But that's actually a lot of what's in there.
Well, why? I think let's take a look next at why. Like, why is he putting this book out, and how does it fit into his release timeline? Can that give us more of a sense of why it was composed like it was?
Yeah, well, this one we've been working our way through chronologically. If you've seen previous episodes,
and you should.
Here's the publication timeline. There's Divine Providence, which is in 1764. Now, last time we talked about Divine Love and Wisdom, which was published in 1763.
Companion.
And these are definitely kind of a companion pair of works. Swedenborg even saw them, which is like how that works, I don't know, in the spiritual world, bound together as a single volume, Divine Love and Wisdom and Divine Providence.
Pause, did you hear that? So he saw his books that he was going to be writing in the spiritual world and saw the format. So somehow, is he writing them, or is he just...
Is there some dual publication thing? I don't know how that works, but it's very interesting. And so this was the only book that he published in 1764, but there was a whole bunch that just came out in 1763.
Yeah, okay, so let's now start to dive into what you find in this book and why I love the book and why I feel like it's a source of a lot of good material for us. Let's play a little game we call First and Last. So how do you start a book about how God runs everything? How does he open this thing up?
Well, the absolute beginning is kind of a, you know how some shows will show you previously on what you
Swedenborgian life.
Yeah, that's right. And so it does previously on what I've published. He gives a little summary of Divine Love and Wisdom.
Yeah.
And then he says, and the heading is, Divine Providence is the form of government exercised by the Lord's divine love and wisdom.
Definition.
And he explains here in number 2, the way the Lord's divine love and wisdom look after us is what we call divine providence. So that's the connection with divine love and wisdom, is that, oh, there's divine love and wisdom. So in divine love and wisdom, we're sort of looking up at the universe and it's, but here it's like, oh, this is exactly how that cares for us and what the rules are. And stuff,
and how it looks after us. Although there is a lot of morality teaching in the book, the core message of it, the way in which God is looking after us, is the best news you could ever get.
Yeah,
and
sure.
So how do you wrap up a book like that? Some inspirational ending. Actually, the last section is called No Instant Salvation. No Instant Salvation, and it's him railing against the church of his day, which was preaching this idea of faith alone, and if you deathbed confessions or you confess Jesus as your Savior, you're instantly changed into a being that it can be saved and taken to heaven even if before you weren't. And he's saying...
So some people could even kind of play this game to try to see how late, like brinkmanship.
On the
how
other
close
side.
to death, like you're within half an hour. What do you think? Shall I go now or something?
Johnny was 7 seconds before he kicked the bucket.
Yeah,
He's the best angel. And what he's saying is, throughout this whole book, I have described to you that the way that God runs the universe is orderly and it's structured, and it is the best configuration that there can be. So you can't just circumvent it. And if God really could just snap and change people on a whim, then the fact that he's not doing that this very second means he's out of his mind, because of course you would.
Why not do it when you're 15 minutes old or something? Like, why wait?
Or just do it before everybody was born. He's saying, listen, that you guys teaching that you can just change who you are, that freedom doesn't matter, that what you love isn't what becomes a part of you, that you can just be assigned to nature by God any time. That's a problem. That's actually destroying the church. He's going on and on about it, and that's the end. But that's not really the end.
Oh.
Because there is this fascinating little coda or postscript in which he begins by saying, forgive me for adding the following to fill out the rest of the page. And why would he ask you to forgive him? And why would he? It almost sounds like he's filling out the page against his will. Well, in a show we did,
like he's got blank paper. It sort of costs a lot back then. So
like,
okay, well, I'll write something else, but take it or leave it.
So what ensues is a fascinating conversation that he has, and we actually animated this for a show we published like 5 years ago on this channel. So here is how the book, and we were saying, Divine Love and Wisdom has the best opening probably of any Swedenborg book. I think this one has the best ending of any Swedenborg book. And let's hear it, the tale told dramatically. This is how the book ends.
Forgive me for adding the following to fill out the rest of the page. By special permission, some spirits came up from hell and said to me, "You've written a great deal that the Lord has given you. Write something from us as well." I answered, "What should I write?" They said, "Write that every spirit, whether good or evil, has his or her own delight. A delight in goodness for the good, and a delight in evil for the evil." I asked, "What's your delight?" They said that it was a delight in adultery, theft, fraud, and lying. I said, "And do you find them pleasant?" They said that they were absolutely delightful. I said, "What else do you want me to write?" They said, "Write this, that we are allowed to live in our own delights, no matter how filthy they are, as some would say, as long as we do not harass good spirits and angels. But since we cannot help harassing them, we're driven off and cast into hell." I said, "Why do you harass good people?" They answered that they couldn't help it. It was as though a rage came over them when they saw angels and sensed the divine aura around them. I said, "This makes you like wild animals." When they heard this, a rage came over them that looked like blazing hatred, and to prevent them from doing any harm, they were taken back into hell.
I can talk forever about that. It's not only is it this memorable occurrence stuck in there, but also it's this amazing description of the nature of hell. That these spirits are not coming out saying, "We're so sorry that we're in hell. Please forgive us. We're tortured every day here."
There's been a horrible mistake. I'm innocent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're basically saying, "You guys are suckers for doing the heaven thing. This is better." And so that is an amazing way to end the book.
And what makes them so angry is that he agrees with them, right?
Yeah. And doesn't like it. So That said, that's not that representative of the nature of the content in the book. So instead, let's go to our 3 bites section where we're going to dive deep into what makes divine providence go. We're going to try to give you the breadth of the thing, but again, like with Divine Love and Wisdom, the subject material is so crucial and so broad that it's pretty amazing that you can get any kind of summary of it.
That's right.
I think we got to start with another, maybe a little more expansive definition of divine providence.
Okay. Yep.
This is from 207, where divine providence comes from and what it is.
There's your headline.
Okay. It is divinity working among us, banishing our love for ourselves. Right there, we've got newsworthy developments.
That's right, and it might be worth saying that the love for ourselves is not talking about having a warm bath at the end of a tough day.
Yeah.
He's talking about wanting to rule the universe.
I keep forgetting that you always have to explain that with Swedenborg, because he uses that in a completely opposite direction than the self-care, self-esteem.
It's self-care, that's right.
Love for ourselves, is being this
sort of a titan, and everybody else are these little ants at your feet. When you see other people on these shows about an insane greed. Anyway, that thing, which the basis of it is, I want to put myself above you, is such a problem that what divine providence is doing is trying to get rid of it. It's that against God. That's the story. So kind, isn't it? So nice. Try to take care of that little love of self problem.
As already noted, love for ourselves is the devil.
Wow.
No offense. He does equate the love for the self, meaning which he says that's the root of everything that we would call
the
evil.
Real source.
And its cravings and their pleasures are the evils of its kingdom, hell. Pleasures, and I will try to get through a few sentences after this, but pleasures meaning it's, being evil often gives you the thrill of evil.
There's a delight,
Revenge, when you have road rage, all this stuff. People aren't doing it because they hate the sensation.
Or getting somebody to do your will by whatever manipulation or whatever. Yeah.
Okay.
It's so fun.
That very joy is hell. Once this has been banished, the Lord comes in with impulses of love for our neighbor. So in the spaces that we open up, he opens the skylights.
Oh, I like this imagery.
And then the windows in our walls, and enables us to see that heaven is real.
Oh, nice.
That there is a life after death, and that there is eternal happiness.
Wow.
And funny that stuff, the knowledge of even that stuff, is blocked off.
It's blocked off
by love of self.
When you're on this other ego trip thing.
As I am right now. By the spiritual light and the spiritual love that then flow in together, he enables us to recognize that through his divine providence, God is taking care of everything.
That's sweet. And I wonder whether we sort of dip in and out of that state. Like in some states, you can tell more than in other states. Or, we sort of dip in and out of that.
Through his divine providence, God is taking care of everything. That could be the headline of the book.
Yeah, that's a good
Remember
good headline.
When you're in your darkest place and you're surrounded by the most fear and the most feeling the most crushed, God is taking care of everything, in every little mental detail, everything.
And a crucial piece of that, because everybody has wondered forever, and it hasn't gone out of style yet, why do all these bad things happen? Why is there violence? Why are innocent people hurt? Why is there craziness and mayhem and madness? And
I was wondering that Friday morning. So.
Why do people, people can plot or, scamming the elderly or whatever, why is that allowed to go on? Well, Divine Providence talks about a way that the Lord is able to bring good out of evil. So evil is actually useful. It's allowed because it's useful.
In the end.
He talks about this in Divine Providence 21 and 26. The Lord's divine providence works things out. Who knows how?
Right.
It works things out so that what is both evil and false promotes balance, comparison, and purification, which means that it promotes the union of what is good and true in others. It actually helps others. And sometimes when you see something so bad, you think, oh, you want to distance yourself from that. It's helping you
and that
get clearer.
You can see that on a big scale, that we'll all refer back to tragedies and acts of war in the past and say, we don't want to go down the slope to being like that again, that once you see it, it can be removed.
Yeah, that's right. These useful functions are provided by the Lord through the union of what is evil and false that prevails among people in hell, since the Lord's rule, meaning His governance or something, which is not only over heaven, but also over hell, and that's such a crucial point. I think we talked about that in that show about heaven and hell. But it's an amazing thought that the Lord is actually governing hell as well as heaven, is a functional rule. It doesn't just mean He's good at it. It means that it's all about the functions that everybody's performing. It's a function-based governance.
Right.
And the Lord's providence intends that there should be no one and nothing there that does not do some service or enable some service to happen, which is pretty amazing when you think about what would be involved in trying to, set the whole thing, rig the whole thing up so that every single thing in it is useful. But you certainly see this in the animal kingdom, don't you? Like the idea of like maggots, or I was just hearing something the other day about, some people feel like the grossest thing is to have maggots in a wound, and yet they're finding that actually maggots can clean the wound and that you heal faster. I'm not recommending it.
Who wouldn't want some maggots?
But I'm just saying there's things that people think is the grossest thing ever that's actually performing a use. So you see that in nature, don't you?
Well, and the theory would be, which is difficult to put into practice, that it's not that you can look at things that are bad and say, oh, that doesn't hurt, or that's not sad or tragic.
Right.
But that you could say,
not for a second,
I know that somehow in the long run good is going to come out of this. Which is like, try it on small things, because the really big things, I don't know if any of us are there for that.
Yeah,
but,
it's very tough.
But I can see that in the small things. And sometimes I think people, even looking back, can see it in their lives in the big things too. And then we go from there, because that's the governance side, but there's also this, what we have to do, like you were mentioning. And so in Divine Providence, which you'd think this would be in some other more theologically minded book like True Christianity or something, he talks about the means of salvation. And this is from 329.
Like what you got to do to get saved kind of thing, how it works?
Yeah, how do you, Divine Providence is trying to banish your love of self, how do you help it along?
Yeah, okay.
The means of salvation boil down to these two: that we are to abstain from evils because they are against the divine laws and the Ten Commandments, and that we are to acknowledge that God exists.
Okay, it doesn't sound too hard. I mean, I know that abstain from evils thing is tough, but he's broken it down to just two things, right?
Yeah, and you could guess the first one, but the second one is interesting.
Yeah.
We can all do this, provided we do not love what is evil.
Wow, that's a big statement, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because some people sort of think, oh, well, those people are hopeless or something like that. But he's saying, no, absolutely every human being has this capacity. The thing that gets in the way, again, is that loving. And by loving, he doesn't just mean, oh, yes, I find that sort of titillating sometimes or something like that. He's talking about you've made it the central thing in your life, and you've gotten rid of everything else that stands in the way. That's when you're really all in.
Intending it, and either doing it or you would do it if you could.
It's deliberate, exactly.
The Lord is constantly flowing into our volition with the power to abstain from evils, and into our discernment with the power to think that God is real.
Wow. So those two things are being beamed in, like everybody has access to that.
Yeah. Well,
you can tap into it.
And you can, that fluctuation can be very tangible at times. That there are these religious concepts that we're talking about here. There are times when they seem relatively remote and improbable, and there are other times when it just feels like this is as plain as the tree that I'm looking at.
Can't everybody see it? Yeah.
However, no one can do one of those things without doing the other as well.
That's got to be, I think his name was Emmanuel. You can't do one of these without the other one.
Yeah.
Swedenborg.
Oh, is that what
that's so basic?
ES stands for?
Yeah. That's the in Swedish. Yeah.
They are united the way the two tablets of the Ten Commandments are united. The one being for the Lord, and the other for us.
Oh, who knew?
From his tablet, the Lord is enlightening and empowering everyone. This will be the first couple commandments. You should have no other gods.
And they're all about God and stuff, not taking the name in vain. Right.
But we accept that power and enlightenment only as we do what is on our tablet.
Which is
Don't
not
murder,
killing, adultery,
steal,
right.
Until we do, who knows more of the commandments, me or you? Until we do that, it is as though the two tablets were lying face to face and closed with a seal. But as we do what is on our tablet, they are unsealed and opened. Again, coming back to this theme of here's what God does, here's what you need to do.
I really like that. And what a concrete image he comes down to just with the Ten Commandments and the two tablets, and whether they're closed up or open. And that seems to be a key to it. Like, here's all the great stuff that God will do for you. That's what the divine providence is.
Yeah.
And all the ways the Lord's taking care of you. There's just some things that we need to do.
Yeah.
Or we're not getting all that's beaming into us all the time, but we're not receiving it.
And how connected our little lives are to the way everything is run, that you have this divine providence, which you could have a different book written from a different perspective saying, divine providence is concerned most with maintaining the state of creation. There must be points and counterpoints and
certain,
the
gravity
expansion of the universe, and right?
Right.
But this,
the integrity of chemical,
okay, yeah, you've read it.
Covalent bonds.
Yeah. But the heart and soul of this, the thing Providence is most concerned with, is freeing us from what's most toxic to us and bringing us into the state of heaven. That's why everything else runs the way it does.
Right. And the chemicals and everything else is just to serve, it's just the backdrop against which this human drama happens.
No offense to the chemicals and fans of the chemicals.
Wonderful.
They are very, very good at what they do, for sure.
They are.
Okay, so I want to finish this up by asking, how does this book help? Why are we publishing it? Why are we promoting it? What do you think these concepts in here can do for individuals and for the world?
I guess I would say there are two things in a way, because one is sort of explaining the ways of God. Like it really does break it down almost like the laws of gravity or physics or something, to say, hey, there are certain laws, the Lord's not going to break that law. He is that law, so everything has to be freedom according to rationality or whatever. And
hey, check out, sorry to interrupt, but I just thought of check out our show. We did a show called The 7 Laws of Divine Providence.
Oh, that's right, we did.
Where we actually, which we're not doing in this episode, but going through the different laws of divine providence and doing exactly what we're doing here, rambling about each of them. So search that one after this if you're intrigued.
Yeah. And the other side is, as we've been talking about, here's what we need to do and why. Like the work called Life that we talked about before in a previous show about the 4 sets of teachings, that has information about here's how to repent, here's how to change your heart kind of thing. But divine providence really gets into, do you want to see behind the scenes why it works that way? Here's what God is doing. Here's you. Here's how it all works. And who else has ever? There's this thing in philosophy called the problem of evil, which is basically like, well, if God is good, why is there evil? Either God's not powerful, or He's not really good, or something's gone horribly wrong.
Or you're trying to sell me something.
To me, it's the best ever answer to the problem of evil. So I think it's important to keep it in print.
Might as well. And I would say that if we're describing extremes, the best ever, I'd say that there's got to be close to the best experience that can be given to human beings is thinking about the life we're in now and all the fear and anxiety and despair that can come with it, to in those dark places suddenly have this occur to you that, nope, I was taking care of things the whole time. The stuff that you think is insurmountable and terrorizing, I've got it under control. It's all going to be okay. When you thought it's not, it's like the feeling of waking up from a nightmare and, oh, it was nothing. That is I've had little bits of that, and I think it's from this book and the ideas in there.
Yeah.
And I want to give that to people. That's like the best present you can give. So let's give it. All right. Speaking of presents, could you give us a present? Ask some questions that we can have some time to answer. What do you think about divine providence so far? What do you think about everything else? We're going to get to it in this section right now. We're doing two things right now.
Oh.
There's one thing we're doing, which is you're asking us questions in the chat that we are going to answer here. But you're also, don't forget, you're giving us elevator pitch topics. So
what's the elevator pitch thing again?
I don't know. The elevator pitch is where
you
give us a little, like, what's an area of Swedenborg? Divine Providence could be an area of Swedenborg.
Right.
We're already warmed up on that one. Give us a Swedenborgian concept, right, that you want to see us try to explain in a minute or less, explain not just what it is, but why it's important. So either ask us a question or get us a topic for our elevator pitch, which comes next, but we need you to enter those now so we can have enough for that section. First question, let's see what it is. Steve Casey asks, did Swedenborg ever say how long it would take for his teachings to be globally known? I'm sure within my lifetime this community will spread tenfold. I love it. I love the optimism.
That's awesome.
And it was not a bad time for Swedenborgian optimism because, let me tell you something, until this amazing thing started happening on YouTube, we were having some real slow going. And it's been that way for a while.
That's right.
I mean, do you want to talk a little bit more about it?
Yeah, well, there's sort of two answers that come to mind. One is that I was just reading this letter that someone wrote from Swedenborg's time period who had a whole conversation with Swedenborg.
Yeah.
And talked to him, actually got the chance to go around to his house, which I'm jealous, and got to ask him, hey, tell me more about your teaching, what's going on?
Yeah.
This was the royal librarian at the time, Carl Christopher Gurwell, and he says, Swedenborg says this and that and the other thing and the other thing, and he has this whole list of things that he says, and then he says, but he doesn't know the future. And it was just an interesting little kind of tidbit that he throws in there, that I think he must have asked him. So, like, what's
going to happen?
What's happening next, or something like that? I don't know. And divine providence does get into the future, doesn't it? Like, one of the things has to do with the future, and whether we're allowed to know it or not, and how that whole thing works. I think one of those laws has to do with that.
Yeah.
The other answer is that I think it's in his work on marriage love, toward the end there. You remember this story, don't you? Where he's telling all these angels about the books that have been published in the world. And they're all excited and they're high-fiving, and they look at him and he looks depressed. And they say, well, why are you depressed? And he says, because this isn't received at all.
Yeah.
And then the angels are like, no, come on. And then they try this experiment and they lower it down. And sure enough, it's not being received.
Yeah.
And then they all get depressed and they ask, how long? Which is the question right here.
Yeah.
And what they hear is, for a time, times, and half a time, which is a biblical phrase meaning 1 plus times is 2, 3.5,
Made famous in the book of Revelation.
He doesn't put a year on it or whatever, but I do agree with the person writing the question that I think we're in an interesting season right now where this is really kind of catching fire. And I'm very excited about it because it's overdue. I think the world is ready for this.
This is something that I would like to know almost more than anything, is what is the trajectory of these books in particular and direct extrapolations from those? Because I could see a world in which certainly you could have a community of people doing what we're doing at a much larger scale, 100-fold, 1,000-fold.
Possibly even doing a better job, when you think about it.
Yeah, I think so. I think that is, even Swedenborg would have known that. But what I don't know is, do these books themselves become world famous, or is it they were describing something that is going to pop up through a lot of other things.
I see.
You know, is
different
it
sort of spiritual technologies or something that they're taking different forms.
I don't know. I'm pulling for the Swedenborg books because I just think that the way they're organized, the way they state things is so valuable. But hopefully, at least, we're going to be able to, Swedenborgian thought, whatever it ends up being called, hopefully it gets a better name than that. It's going to be a good global citizen, and there's going to be a lot of people finding potent stuff. I don't think you can build a better system of ethics and a better way to tie life together than with anything that exists on Earth that can challenge what Swedenborg can give you as a scaffold. You'd fill it in with other stuff. The answer is, I don't know. I wish I knew, but I don't know.
And I just, seriously, one reason that I gave up a number of other fun things that I was doing in order to do these translations is because I really feel like getting those texts as readable as possible, whether we succeeded or not, but just like trying with everything we've got for the sake of all those people, the potential readers and everything. Seemed to me like the pearl of great price. You know?
Right. Well, the only way it's going to happen is if you like and subscribe. Just kidding, you don't have to put that graphic up. Well, I'm kidding, but not kidding. Okay, thanks so much for the question.
Great question.
And let's check back in 10 years and see what happened. All right, this is the next one. MTP358 asks, why do some NDEs envision a fiery hell and others do not? Because some of the experiences are very much centered around that hell experience. I'm thinking of Howard Storm in particular, that it was essential for him to experience this negative, dark side. Before, I don't know if there was fire in his or not, but there was certainly wickedness of all kinds, which then
abuse, just like
sets the scene for what he learned in the positive part. But why do you think, with Swedenborg describing that there's a huge heaven and a huge hell, you can't miss them, what's going on with these modern near-death experiences?
It is. I share the question that why would it be that some people get the...
We're going to go 0 for 2 here. I think.
Right.
We didn't know the last one.
Why do some people get just a purely positive, glorious... It's got to be in Providence somewhere, but that's might be sort of a cop-out
in divine
answer.
providence.
But I think that Howard Storm's situation, he really seemed to benefit from it. I definitely believe that the Lord doesn't allow anything to happen without some usefulness coming out of it. And in Howard Storm's case that you raised before, if I'm remembering the story right, he really learned that even just saying simple phrases from the Bible or from Sunday school, whatever, Pledge of Allegiance, that had an effect on those evil forces. And he sort of learned how to, where I'm thinking about Eben Alexander's situation where he was kind of underground. I don't know if you'd call it a hell, but it was kind of a dark situation. But then he found that he was able to travel, to figure out how to move and stuff like that. So I think there's got to be some lesson. Because otherwise it's kind of explicable why some people just have this glorious, I went to the other world, so did I. I had a wonderful thing, I guess mine wasn't as good.
So I've gotten a chance to...
And I don't think it just means, you're just a bad like you're a bad person, so you got a bad experience. I'm a good person, so I got a good experience.
No offense. I've gotten to hang out with Howard Storm a couple of times. I mean, we interviewed him on this channel, but also I was speaking at a conference where he was.
Nice.
I have dinner with him and and talk. And first of all, I think that he's what he brought out of experience was total joy. That he doesn't at all feel like I got ripped off. But second of all, you talk about
he seems so
divine
heavenly state to me.
Divine providence banishing our love of self. He writes about it openly in his book. He talks about it. He was very much a jerk before his experience. That he was very self-centered. He talks about it, and that banishing that love of self, that his negative experience had that effect. That it was part of him losing this giant ego that he had. So I think it's the same question that is touched on in Divine Providence. That question is the same question as why do some people seem to have much more tragedy in their life than others? Why do certain people get spared their most horrific experiences while others do not? Again, it's a very difficult question, but I think it's the same one.
Yeah, and you're suddenly making me think about the fact that Swedenborg says that really there are even stories he tells. Some of the best information he got was from hell. Like from studying hell, like the clarity. They go, I see. Thank you.
Yes.
There are some times where he even tells stories of where he goes to these angels, and they say, well, think about this, and then you go to the next level, and then the next level. When you finally get to the evil spirits, it becomes clear.
Yeah.
They're the best teachers sometimes,
Yeah.
in an interesting way, just by contrast.
Not that
And
they're
so
telling him principles, but that in observing the dysfunction they're in, he gets clear about
you
life.
really get to get clear. Yeah, that's right. And so, who knows why all those people go through those kind of experiences sometimes, but I think there must be some benefit like that.
Great question. Okay, let's see if we can go 0 for 3. Here's the third one. Jeffrey Belknap asks, which other contemporary religious or spiritual movements align most closely with Swedenborg's cosmology? Okay, we can do this. So,
All right.
and we're talking about contemporary as in now, rather than contemporary to his time.
Right.
And
I assume. Yeah.
I am no scholar of religions. Like, I found Swedenborg, I've dabbled in a lot of other things, but I found Swedenborg, I've dove into it, so I couldn't speak on any of these traditions as an authority on the subject. I will say we get a lot of people talking about Baha'i and saying that there is quite a lot of similarity between Swedenborg's teachings and that, and then I'm just going to cherry pick the easy ones.
Yeah.
Mormonism. And I don't know a lot of what's in it, but a lot of people have wondered if Joseph Smith had some kind of inspiration from Swedenborg's works, because there is obviously some things that are very different, but some of the principles in there align quite closely. Some of the other things about life after death and anything like that. So
yeah, that's good. And I think there are even some kind of mystical traditions within Islam that are relatively close, because the one God kind of thing, and then the idea of the afterlife. And
we were visited by a Muslim scholar who was talking about the similarities that he saw between.
It was fascinating. Yeah, it was really, really interesting. And also, I've talked to someone from the what's called the Orthodox. It's like Greek Orthodox or Russian Orthodox kind of thing. That there are some affinities there as well. There's some things sort of click well with those traditions. Plus, I think anything that's about like the usefulness or love or those kind of things, you know what I mean? Which is just universal. You know, every tradition has something about that in it.
What about Buddha of the North? You had D.T. Suzuki saying that there, and that when you get down to the kind of practice you would be doing, a lot of people say there is an East-West crossover in Swedenborg, that he actually has more in common with, let's say, the Eightfold Path than Lutheranism in his day.
Yes, yeah, that's right. And I look forward to the day, we were talking about the future and this growing, where you get more and more, not that there are none now, but there's so much work to be done. It would be really cool to have things that would say, well, here are the affinities with this tradition, here are the affinities with this tradition, because I think there are a lot of points of similarity. And the audience to this show is an amazing fountain of this kind of information for us.
That's right.
Where people, you tell us that hey, this aligns with my faith. I'm Chinese. This is how this fits in, or I'm from here, or this tradition, or whatever, and I see this similarity.
Because how are we going to know? We're just two guys.
We don't
know anything. Unless you tell us.
I'm no expert.
So it seems, but I almost want to say, like, the stuff that to me really confirms Swedenborg or aligns with it is stuff outside of the religious spiritual world. I'm talking about, like, nature.
Yes.
And that when you start to understand correspondences, when you look out at nature, it starts to hit you like, this is the same thing. This is just what he's talking about.
This is what's going on. Right.
When you, like, this, in the study of like cellular biology, psychology, a lot of stuff in there, even though, Western psychology does not acknowledge the existence of a spiritual dimension or its interference. Still, the way they categorize things in the mind fit right into Swedenborg. He just has this step back of where those came from.
Piece on
to
it.
me, those are some of the most intriguing connections.
And part of what's just as sort of a meta comment, part of what's amazing about Swedenborg to me is to see how well his works fit with a variety of traditions.
Yeah.
It's not really just, this is only one. This is a spice that you can only use in this particular dish. It's like it kind of goes with a lot of different things.
Okay, so you said which contemporary traditions is Swedenborg most closely aligned with, and we said, well, like all of them. So it's up to you to decide. Did we go 0 for 3 or was it 1 for 3? Thanks, that was fun. Thank you guys. And now it's on to the elevator pitch. This is the part of the show where you go to know what it looks like to have people try and fail to explain Swedenborg stuff. The reason we would put ourselves...
As if that wasn't a demonstration of what we just
yeah,
uttered,
right.
But,
you got your fill of it in the last half an hour.
Yeah, that's right.
So the reason why something like this is useful, we're talking about everything having a use, is if these concepts that we're wading through here are actually real, you should be able to explain them in a concise, almost reflexive way.
Yeah.
And
right.
there, on the other side of it,
are you upping the pressure?
Shoot, I haven't left us any escape route here. Also, there may be situations where any of you, one of us, is faced with the daunting prospect of somebody asking you about a Swedenborg thing and you're trying to explain it. So here we're envisioning a scenario in which we both stepped onto an elevator and we'll begin with Dr. Jonathan Rose sitting there, and I ask him some question which will be on a topic you've just supplied. He hasn't seen yet.
We haven't seen it.
And he has 60 seconds to tell me explain that concept to me and tell me why it's useful. So our very first one is going to be, this is a segment we call Elevator Pitch. And our very first one is going to be the lower earth. So let's say, we just both got on the elevator, doors close, and I say, hey, are you Dr. Jonathan Rose? Could you tell me a little bit about the lower earth?
In the Bible, there are certain passages that talk about the pit, being down in the pit. And even people psychologically say, I've been in the pit or I'm in the pit, so things like that. Swedenborg describes an area that's close to hell in his map of the spiritual world. You got hell, you've got heaven, you've got this world of spirits in between. But there's this part that dips down into hell, but is connected to heaven. And when I read about this, I always thought, this is so weird. What is he talking about? And then I realized, I think this is where I've spent most of my life. I think I've got my initials scratched on the wall of this place, because it's a place where you're affected by falsity, but you don't realize it, and you're trying to connect with the Lord. And who doesn't have sort of false beliefs that kind of keep you tied down? Certain ways of looking at yourself, looking at other people, relationships, or whatever. And the beauty is that the pit is a place that you get out from. You get lifted up, as the Bible says, your feet come out of the mud and get set on the solid rock.
Very nice. I'm thinking about the third person in the elevator who's like, what are they talking about? That was awesome. That was a concise, powerful summary of that. And if you guys want to see a whole show about that, I don't know if I can remember the title. Is the meaning of the book of Revelation, the souls under the altar.
Oh, okay. Right.
That's where, but you're not going to get anything as pithy and flashy as that. But we will go further into expanding on what you just said. And you know what? I'm convinced I'll go off with you on your floor so we can continue this conversation. That was perfect. Okay, now let's see what else you got. I'm going to try to do the very same thing, only this time he's asking me a question. So let's begin our countdown. Okay, the white horse.
White horse, all right.
Okay. You think about the symbolism of a horse and how it sticks around. We still talk about someone riding in on a white horse and saving the day, even though a horse sucks compared to a car. It's very slow, it can't get you around. But why does that stay almost as this archetypal symbol of freedom? You think about the person riding on the horse, it's rearing up as something. There's something deeper that it's telling you. Well, the horse, which allows a person to get where they need to go and was a huge advantage, in the pre-automobile world that made it so you could get to where you needed to be, is a symbol for how you understand life. This is how you get around. You think about what you believe is true. This is what gets you to navigate your relationships. This is what gets you to navigate the problems and challenges that come. This is what you ride on to get where you need to go. So what's the white horse? The white horse is the true understanding. This is how you go and ride above all the falsity, conquer it, and get to heaven. So that's the white horse.
Unbelievable.
Is that where the white horse actually is? Okay.
You were very convincing.
Good. Okay, so those are a couple, and there's always expansive. Like the White Horse is also a book that's by Swedenborg, which you can go in, and they're particular in Revelation, but in the elevator.
No, you don't have time for all that. That's right.
Good. All right. Hey, thanks everybody. Much appreciated.
Questions.
Thank you for making us brush up on our Swedenborg scholarship. And what we're going to do now is stop hearing from us and hear a little bit from all of you, because it's now time to get the ice melter going.
All right.
So we had our most challenging icebreaker question. So let's see, what did everybody have to say about it? And that question was, what is an evil love that you have chosen to reject in your life? So this is what the people had to say. Smoking. Hey, and super tough to kick. Alcohol. Okay, so right away we got smoking, alcohol, smoking.
Look at that.
So that, and we're going to go take a tour of the different levels, of the body and mind here, because right after that, negative thinking. Right? That's something that was ruining my life in the interior.
Man, that's good. I like that one.
Putting myself second as much as possible and others first. It's hard not to put yourself first in your life.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, right. Gossiping, WM. Attachment to my own lack of forgiveness. Resentment is an addiction, right? The nursing
lack of
that.
forgiveness. Yeah, wow.
I am a recovering alcoholic. Alcohol can truly be evil.
That's right.
Telling tall tales.
Oh,
Yeah.
right.
Infidelity.
I've done that.
Right.
A time or two, yeah.
Infidelity, something strong in my line of spiritual heredity. I'm trying to reject the temptation to negatively judge people.
Good.
Right? This stuff is great so far. I would have to say judgment. I'm diligently trying to alter the ego to have less of it. So far, so good. Didn't realize it was such a struggle, but it is. Thank God for this show. Thank you. I'd like to reject my computer, but do daily battle with negative thinking. My place is to love and be accepting of others as themselves. I'll leave the negativity to denizens of the lower realms.
Nice.
The evil love of my life has always been anger.
Oh, look at that. Yeah.
Now I choose to be more patient with the things that try to trigger it. I connect with my better angels instead. Awesome.
Yeah, I like that way of putting it, that there's sort of your go-to place. I do my best to reject the continual negative and seductive influences to spiritually judge others or presume I know what they should or should not do.
We've got judging coming up quite a bit here.
I've chosen to reject agreeing with others who have no compassion for others.
Just like going along with it.
Yeah, right. Going along with a crowd to do evil or something. Breaking confidence with it's better for stuff to be in the open so I'm not so evil excuse. Yeah, wow, that's tricky, isn't it?
Right.
I'm dealing with racism, unforgiveness, attributing good to myself.
That's 3 right there. And thanks everybody for your honesty in this.
Yeah, really
it's like if you realize other people are struggling with stuff, then it just changes the way you see the human race. After spending so many years in the military and flying professionally, I choose to be more accepting, respectful, and loving to my loved ones and colleagues.
Nice, and that's a choice.
Yeah.
That's really great.
Every day I try to pay attention to every and anything that may seem hellish, then pray and rebuke it. In recognition of the multiple influences, as soon as I recognize their workings, I simply choose not to entertain them, declining their persistent invites, thus rejection.
Yes, I think that's that's great.
Violence. I'd like to say hatred and anger, but those will arise unbidden.
True.
I can avoid acting on them, though, so violence.
I like that.
Yeah,
that's very good.
Maybe I can't stop, police how I feel, but I can police what I do.
They say that anger can rise in yourself faster than you can realize you have it.
Oh, right.
You know what I mean? Like,
right.
How can you, if you don't even, but then what's your next move? How does that manifest?
So thank you so much, everybody, for being willing to talk about what's going on with you and reminding us, that this is something that really, we think it's all of us against each other, but it's actually all of us against the negativity in ourselves. Everybody's like trying to fight that same fight. So
and
thank
these
you.
head bullies who are trying to get it started, trying to get you angry or judgmental or whatever.
And if you're watching this after the fact, feel free to write yours in the comments. Why not start a discussion about, if we're learning all this spiritually kind of stuff, what good is it going to do for the human race? Well, the main good is going to be giving us the leverage to push this stuff out of our life, right?
That's right.
Okay, that's our show. Thank you so much, everyone, for being a part of it. if this wasn't enough, if this wasn't way too much, we have more programming. We have our show News from Heaven, which is now on Thursdays and Saturdays.
Oh,
so every
nice.
Thursday, every Saturday, you get a 20-minute boost right out of Swedenborg's writings.
That's a fun show.
Yeah, we're going to try to figure out life in the mind by picking apart this stuff. And if you've enjoyed that show, this show, anything, don't forget, we said it 45 times this episode, like and subscribe, click the bell, that's really good. And next Monday, before we talk about next Monday, hey, did you ever wonder how something like this can subsist and persist on the internet?
I do wonder.
How does it work?
Yeah, I don't know. Where do the checks come from?
Well, we're a nonprofit. You may notice we don't charge you for this show. We don't put ads on this show. We give the books away for free as much as we possibly can, or print them at cost. So one way you can support us in doing this is join us on Patreon. That is a way you can give a modest monthly contribution and yet know that you're a part of us being able to do what we do. We give you some thank yous and extra behind the scenes stuff. Also give you some personalized question answering in there.
We're really thrilled with the support that we get through those and other means, other donations.
And everybody who's
really awesome.
Everybody who's donated to us, thank you so much. And you're what make it all work. And here's what your donations are going to do. Next week, we're going to talk about Swedenborg's extensive work on the meaning of the Book of Revelation.
Book of Revelation. All right, here we go.
Yeah, there's some intrigue here because there's a whole bunch of books on it he never published. And then some he did, and why, and where, and how can, well, hey, we just got a preview of it. Somebody's asking me in an elevator, which put me in an uncomfortable position of, what's the white horse all about? Well, that kind of stuff. And yours was about it too, the lower earth. Both of those questions.
Our Book of Revelation questions.
Book of Revelation questions. So next week, we're going to spend the week unpacking how this strange piece of text actually is about our lives, and it's going to give you tools to get over that stuff you were just talking about, all that hard stuff, even the Book of Revelation. We'll show you how next week. Thanks so much for hanging out. That was a lot of fun.
That's so fun, Curtis.
See y'all then.
Swedenborgian Life Live is Curtis Childs, host and showrunner, with co-host Jonathan Rose. Live stream tech and graphics by Stuart Farmer and Matthew Childs. Show writing and chat moderation by Karin Childs and Chelsea Odner.